Investigates the post office scandal.
Are you ready, Joe?
As a postmaster, people looked up to you.
And you get to know your customers extremely well.
The people were lovely, and you could chit-chat and everything.
You'd be like the agony aunt of the village. Yeah, it was lovely.
It was good. It was a good laugh. Those were the nice times.
The time is 27 minutes to 8. The news headlines this morning. The world of many sub-postmasters was turned upside down. They found themselves being accused by the post office of false accounting and fraud. Some went to jail.
I told them straight away, you know, I said, there's a problem here.
Just to see those words that you stole £36,000. Being accused of theft is horrible.
All I heard, imprisonment. And just somebody came and took me. And I remember having sharp pains in my stomach. I was pregnant.
They were about as far from criminals as it's possible to be. Just clearly trustworthy, decent and kind people.
This is a document from July 2010, and they're talking about you.
It is absolutely vital that we win, as a failure could bring down the whole Royal Mail system.
All these people they knew. To be honest, I got no words.
Bastards. Sorry.
If there had been any miscarriages of justice, it would have been really important to me in the post office that we actually surface those.
You just literally wanted to face her up and say, excuse me, why did you just lie?
Come on, Ola. Come on, sweetheart. Come.
It's unbelievable. You don't expect it, do you, in the post office? I was a postman in a place called Paradwys, which in English is paradise. Very happy. As a postman, I spent 32 years of that, and I took over the postmaster's job in about 1993. Opening up at 9 in the morning, selling your stamps, your pension, and doing a lot of other things. Until that morning at 7:30 on October the 13th, 2005, when the two investigators came in. I knew I had a problem then. Money was going missing. There was a lady and a gentleman, and I was sitting in my living room, and as she walked through the door, she said, "The thief is there. Cuff him."
Hundreds of sub-postmasters had their lives turned upside down, and it was all because of a faulty IT system. In 1999-2000, the post office rolled out this IT system to every single post office in the country, and it was called Horizon.
Horizon is an accounting system used by the post office, and what's notable about it is the scale of it. It was a huge IT system, and every single IT system has bugs in it. It goes wrong sometimes.
It was always going to have problems, but it's the way that the post office dealt with those bugs that is what created the scandal.
Computers were a bit magic to me. You touch buttons and things happened. Horizon tells you how much money you should be holding in your branch.
Computers were very strange to us. I was going through my stock, and the cash was all right, the stamps were all right, yet Horizon was telling you that you had money missing.
I almost got in blind panic thinking, it's got to be here somewhere. And I was like throwing paper all over the place thinking, well, it's got to be here. I was like a mad woman.
There's a clause in all of their contracts that made them responsible for any money that had gone missing. It didn't matter how that money had gone missing. All that mattered was that the system said it wasn't there, and so they had to pay it back.
You were phoning the helpline, and honestly, you were talking to people that, to me, at the time, were more or less learning themselves.
If you had holes in your accounts, the post office would say they are your responsibility. You have to make them good because that's our money, and if you can't explain or demonstrate you know how and where this money has gone, it's on you.
I took out a loan to pay back the first shortfalls, to keep the post office open, if you like, to keep Horizon satisfied.
They wouldn't let you open the next day unless you physically put the money into the till. I ended up repaying thousands of pounds.
Then, of course, it came to a point that I couldn't take any more loans on.
Once the postmaster had run out of their own money to shovel into this black hole in their accounts, they were left with a serious dilemma, because they knew if they raised their hand to the post office, there was every chance the post office would just take their business away from them. So some of these terrified people just hid the holes in their accounts, hoping that somehow it would right itself a few weeks or months down the line. But of course, if the post office found out about that, it would go after them for the criminal offence of false accounting.
Everybody in the village knows Jo, and she's a great person. And we just became friends. Jo was explaining it to me as the fact that it must have been a computer error. I think we just genuinely hoped that it would all come out in the wash. But of course, we know it didn't.
They came round to the house. I remember them being in dark clothes. They were both in dark coats, and he just sat down on the sofa and he said, "There's a large discrepancy, where is it?" They told me I'd be interviewed under caution, and I went to the solicitor's office. Just seeing the two of them on the other side of the desk, and the click of turning the tape on, it made it real. It made the whole thing real, and you realised how serious it was. I thought, oh God, this is it, you know, I'm in the criminal justice system.
They were about as far from criminals as it's possible to be. Just clearly trustworthy, decent and kind people. It just didn't compute.
I told them straight away, you know, I said there's a problem here.
I said, I've got real problems with the Horizon, and he said, well, you're the only person that's ever had problems with it.
Oh, you're the only one. That was the answer coming back. Nobody else is complaining.
And I got the summons, and it was like, wow, this is really going to happen now. Just to see those words that you stole £36,000 in monies belonging to post office was just horrible. Being accused of theft is horrible.
These sub-postmasters are in a situation whereby they can't prove they haven't stolen any money. And they don't know where to go. They don't know how they can get out of this, at which point the post office offers them an exit route. It says, well, if you plead guilty to false accounting, we'll drop the theft charge.
My barrister said, if you are willing not to mention Horizon. And I said to him, what does that mean? He said to me, it'll keep you out of jail.
And I was like, prison? Prison? Did someone say prison? The thought of going to prison terrified me, and I would have said yes to anything. When I went down to get fuel for the car, I was on the counter, on the front of the Basingstoke Gazette, and I'm like... And then I felt shame again. The reality was I'd pleaded guilty to a criminal offence.
We went into court and the judge said, I'm sentencing you, he said, to 9 months, and I was waiting for suspended sentence, and he said, no, I'm sorry, he said, take it down. I never knew the day was so long. It was horrible. Locked up in a cell in a very, very old prison. I daren't think if that happened to me again. I would not like to be locked up again.
Fujitsu was the IT services company that rolled out Horizon for the post office. They managed it and ran it behind the scenes.
It was pretty well understood that the system was pretty ropey. Within a couple of weeks of my starting out, I said to the boss, this just needs throwing away and rewriting from scratch. And his reply was, it's not going to happen. Have you any idea how long that would take and how much money it would cost to redo that? There were bugs and errors in the system that we were aware of that affected the postmaster's balances. So there are bound to be problems that are going to cause balance discrepancies that you're just not aware of. They may only crop up once for a postmaster, but if that causes a £25,000 error, it's caused a hell of a problem for that postmaster.
If you could just have a look at the highlighted bit there.
A week 12 misbalance of £1.05 million. Is that right? Yes. So they're reporting £1 million misbalance in a week. So by the time Noel and Joe were having their problems in their branches, there was a knowledge that there were problems within the Horizon system.
It was a very dodgy system. If we'd been aware that postmasters were directly attributing these losses to the systems at the time, then that would have seemed perfectly logical to us.
Any investigator, whether it's police, post office, should be investigating fairly. They shouldn't just be looking for evidence that is damning. They should also be looking for evidence that supports the fact that this person is innocent.
I'll give you the whole lot and have a look at it.
A standard statement could be obtained from Fujitsu covering the fact that the discrepancies would not be due to system error. I think they are absolutely wicked. Crooked. Why would you do that to somebody? I just want to ask them why.
The post office had private prosecution departments. And what it meant was that it was able to bypass both the police and the Crown Prosecution Service. So they're really important institutional checks and balances. The post office was the victim, the investigator and the prosecutor all rolled into one. And unfortunately, over a period of years, its business interests got bound into its investigation and prosecution function. This should never have happened. There should be clear separation, but there wasn't. And that is where it went horribly wrong.
Well, the first error was about £500 odd. You make good, you put the money into the post office to make good the shortfall, and then the following week you've got the same amount, and you think, But I've put it in. How can that be? You put the money in and it happens again. And you eventually get to the point, no, I can't afford to put that money in, so I'll take it back out.
Susan was focused on the day-to-day running of the branch, and Michael tended to be more focused on what he was doing for the union. She hadn't actually told him about the losses that were racking up in their accounts.
I was asked to go down to Fujitsu headquarters in Bracknell to look at the systems and see that, as a Federation member and a working sub-postmaster, if I could make some contribution as to how the system should be developed. When I got to Bracknell, it's a very secure building. There was equipment on the benches which were recognised to me as the Horizon equipment.
If you were going to prosecute a sub-postmaster or hold them liable for a hole in their accounts, they have to be in sole control of their account. It was a myth, a crucial myth to the Post Office's business processes, that a sub-postmaster was in sole control of their accounts. No one could go in, have a little tinker, or even, God forbid, adjust the figures.
My chaperone said to me, I'll demonstrate, I will alter this sub-postmaster's branch figures. And I said, are you sure that this is real time? Yes. I said, well, for your information, we as Federation representatives have always been told that you cannot have remote access to a sub-postmaster's or branch accounts. I was furious. At that point, I was promptly escorted back upstairs and more or less ushered out of the building.
What Michael Rudkin saw on his visit to Fujitsu, what was demonstrated to him by his host, was a way of changing live data on a sub-postmaster's branch accounts.
The following morning after the Bracknell visit, I was awoken by an auditor at 8:30, sitting on the edge of my bed, saying to me, I'm sorry to have to inform you, Michael, but your branch accounts are £44,000 short.
They took me into our dining room and shut the doors, and they interviewed me. And they were just at me all the time. So you took the money. So you took the money you stole from the post office. No, I didn't steal money from the post office. I put that amount in, I took that amount out. The moment I said, yes, I've taken money out of the post office, that was it. Once everything had been turned off, I sat there and I said, so that's it then? Yeah, don't worry about it. They said, you haven't killed anybody, you won't, if you plead guilty, you won't go to prison. And the fear of God was set into me. Oh my God. So am I going to go to prison? I felt shame and thoughts of taking my own life, because I thought, I haven't done it. How am I going to prove? How do I prove that I haven't taken a penny?
We were now facing the prospects of Susan wanting to take her life. It's hard enough as a husband. My son was put under an immense amount of stress. The prospects of his mum taking her life.
Two or three people had rung and said, I know someone this has happened to. And it's like, this is a bit odd. And then I was contacted by Computer Weekly.
I was looking around for postmasters to speak to see if there was a story there that we could pursue. And somebody gave me Jo's name and number.
She phoned, introduced herself and said, we're trying to put a piece together. It grew from there. It was like the fight back.
I was on my knees honest to God. I was on benefits. I'd lost everything. And that's when I first started thinking that there were other people apart from myself.
I felt galvanised about the story that we were writing. I completely believed that they were innocent of what they were being accused of, and I really wanted to help them. After sort of several months of finding these people and writing about them and getting as much backup evidence as we possibly could, we published in May 2009.
I got it the week it came out, or whatever. It was weekly. Was it weekly or monthly?
It was weekly.
Yeah. It launched it, really. It meant somebody was taking us seriously for the first time. It gave us credibility, it gave us a voice.
I was going on internet. That's when I find out about Joe's case. And oh my God, and I remember clearly because there was like a name of the post office and the city and all that. I called, it was like I think 118 to get the telephone number, directory service. And I called and Joe answered. I said, like, are you Joe Hamilton? Did you have an issue with the post office? The minute she said yes, I said, oh my God, so I'm not mad. And I cried and I cried.
Then, within days, Seema came to see me in the office, transferred her case to me, and sat down and told me her story. And it was like having Joe sat in front of me again, because all the same issues came out.
My cousin took me to Compton, to Warwickshire, and I met up with about 25 or 30 of the postmasters. And I remember my cousin telling me then, my God, these people aren't thieves, are they?
I can remember Izzy took me. It was freezing cold.
It was a quintessentially English occasion. There we were, all drinking tea and biscuits in the village hall.
You know, the same stories were coming out. It's only you, there's nothing wrong with Horizon, what have you done with the money, blah, blah, blah. The number of people that had said, oh, I've been suspended, and oh, I've been prosecuted, and oh, I've actually been sent to prison, I've had an 18-month sentence, and I haven't taken a penny.
And we were all told exactly the same story, and we'd all been told we were the only ones. And we're like, we can't be the only ones if 20 of us, the same thing had happened to 20 of us.
Well, we were telling our stories to each other. It was Joe Hamilton, Seema, no, Noel Thomas was there. They couldn't believe that the post office turned around and said the same thing to every single one of us.
It was like, oh my God, now they can't get away with it.
These are people that had never met each other, didn't know each other at all, yet they're coming up with that same core element. And I thought, no, this is not right. That there is something hugely wrong here.
I say to Rubina, we'll fight this case, you're not guilty, and the courts will hear us.
For the first time in 2010, you had a situation where Horizon was going to be on trial. You had Izzy Hogg defending both Seema and Rubina on the basis that it was Horizon errors that caused the holes in their accounts.
I had a faith that at least we got a good legal team. Izzy is there, and we've got a good legal team. It will be fine.
I was trying to ask to really get more information out of them as to whether or not the Horizon system was working properly. It's like drawing teeth. And they were under a duty to disclose anything that undermined their case or supported the defence.
You had Fujitsu not admitting in various witness statements of bugs that they knew about. And then you get to this email from a senior lawyer within the post office telling a Fujitsu engineer that his job during this trial is to preserve the Horizon system. It suggests that the prosecutors were engaged in encouraging secrecy.
Write a detailed report which would go to some way of progressing and concluding this matter, and importantly preserving the Horizon system.
The judge and jury will be listening to you very carefully, and a lot will hang on the evidence. Just for the monthly salary, you know.
When she went to court, I went and I looked at the jury, and it was hard to work them out, what they were thinking. And I remember trying to wish them to find her not guilty.
In the morning is my son's birthday, so I dropped him to school and told him in the evening when he come back, I'll make your favorite curry, we'll be fine and all that. I didn't take any bags because I knew I'll be coming back. I'll be coming back.
It was really important. We thought we were on a roll and she'd be found not guilty.
I was praying for her that this doesn't happen to her, thinking that if it happens to her, what would happen to me? Like the knock-on effect.
I just like numb. I know he's saying something, but all I heard, imprisonment. And just somebody came and took me, and I remember having sharp pains in my stomach. I was pregnant. I say like, oh my God, I just lied to my son. I said to him, I'm going to see him in the evening. And I won't be able to know. Then they took the handcuffs out. I said, why you have to handcuff me? He said, no, that's the protocol. I said, I'm pregnant. You know, I'm not going to run away. Even here I had to go to washroom. Somebody had to handcuff me and stay outside.
The number of prosecutions raised a lot of questions. Information security wanted to audit financial transactions and the accuracy of Horizon. But when they asked for the money to do the work, it was turned down. That decision caused a lot of frustration.
What is extraordinary about this report is that it says any perception that the Post Office doubts its own systems would mean that all criminal prosecutions would have to be stayed. It would also beg a question for the Court of Appeal over past prosecutions and imprisonments. These are the top odds at the Post Office being told that one potential stumbling block that could come from looking into their IT system might be that they uncover miscarriages of justice. And the response, as far as we know, was to do nothing.
So back in August 2010, they knew that they were already in a position where effectively they should be stopping prosecutions, and yet they ploughed on. Now, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
a month before my trial. Seema was sent down to prison. That really frightened me. That honestly really, really frightened me. What if it happens to me?
Like so many other sub-postmasters, dozens of them, Rubina was offered that deal. If you plead guilty to false accounting, we'll drop the theft charge.
Rubina was still pleading not guilty. Obviously, Rubina is looking at me for guidance, and I rang Easy up to see what her verdict was.
And I had to advise Rubina that she should take that offer. And had I known all of what you've shown me now, there's no way I would have been advising people in the way that I did. I shouldn't have been had to give that advice. That is outrageous. Sorry. I shouldn't have been put in that position. I had to give advice to people, which in cases ended up going to prison. I shouldn't have been put in that position.
They took me down into the cells in Shrewsbury Crown Court.
It was a shock to the system, you know. The barrister had said that she's been taken to Foston, and I googled Foston and I cried my eyes out. You can literally see how bad that prison was.
I couldn't even get in touch with him or my family or anybody. It's so difficult.
Two copies in there. There's one for each of you. This is a document from July 2010, and it relates to Rubina Shaheen's case, and they're talking about you.
It is absolutely vital that we win, as a failure could bring down the whole Royal Mail system.
Would bring the whole of the Royal Mail system down. I can't believe this.
You can't believe it.
You can't be saying that it's vital that we win. No, it's vital that the truth come out. That's what the justice system is about.
There was no justice here. There's no justice here.
That's what their attitude was from the start.
Bastards. Sorry.
So just to save the Horizon computer, they destroyed my reputation and my life. Just to save that computer system.
We were thrown out on the street with nothing on us except the clothes that we were wearing.
They took everything away from us. What we thought that if we had our own business, we build it up, have a comfortable life. They just took every single thing away from us, even our house. To live in that sort of situation is really bad. Slowly, it just destroys you.
Now, a BBC Surrey investigation has found other post office managers who've been found guilty of false accounting and theft, who also blame it on a fault with the computer system.
MPs have now gone on the record to express concern about these cases. James Arbuthnot is the Conservative MP for North East Hampshire.
I went to see Joe Hamilton in South Warnborough, and the extraordinary story she told me struck me as being very important and very believable. There was clearly a pattern growing up. There was clearly something that needed to be investigated. Something must be going wrong if suddenly a wave of criminality was sweeping across these pillars of the community. And so I held a meeting with some senior people in the post office.
Chief Executive Paul Lavenels is leading the biggest change in post office history.
Am I on? Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for sparing us some time today.
Post offices were costing the taxpayer over £3 million a week. Money the government has said it's no longer prepared to pay.
In my mind, there is no reason why the post office should be paid for from public money if it can support itself and become commercially sustainable. With that vision, with all the transformation that we are in the middle of, within a couple of years we'll get the whole business to break even, and that will be an astonishing achievement.
The government's ambition was to sell the post office. If there were an issue about the accounting system of the post office, then that clearly would need to be sorted out, because who would buy a large organisation with a dodgy accounting system? Paul Lavenels suggested that what we really needed was an examination by a team of forensic accountants.
The job that we were asked to do was to investigate the allegations, get to the bottom of what was going on without fear or favour.
The party line from Post Office was, of course, the fact that systemically across the network, the system was performing quite well.
But at the same time, suddenly, for a population or a subpopulation within the sub-postmaster community to go rogue and to start stealing from Post Office, it was implausible.
I was convinced that I was hearing the same story from people who had no prior connections, and that starts to be evidence.
Martin and I married in '82. We had 2 children. He liked all sorts of sports. He was a very good sportsman. He loved cricket. That was his passion, cricket. We decided to look into buying a post office, and Hope Farm Road came on the market, and we decided to go for it. It was a very busy post office, and he successfully ran it for many, many years, 13, 14 years. And then all of a sudden, money started going missing. We had to pay the money back in order to carry on trading, otherwise they would have closed us down. They hounded him, they persecuted him. Didn't seem to be any end to it at the time.
This was an experienced businessman who'd built a good life at the post office, and now he was being told that something he was doing was wrong. And he was sliding towards fragility and ruin.
And then they told him they wanted to terminate his position as sub-postmaster, and they gave him 3 months. You know, Martin hit rock bottom. He said goodbye on the Monday morning. I was going to work an hour later. It came on the radio, I think, about an accident that had happened on the road that we travelled on, the A41. I just knew it was Martin. I think he'd been planning it, I really do. He waited for a bus to come along and he stepped in front of it. He was a proud man, and I think he thought he was letting us all down. His children, his parents, and me. They turned the machine off, I think, in the morning. And the worst thing for me was seeing my children. I have to see the dad die. And it was purely down to the post office. Nobody else. So I blame them.
I read a lot of the information relating to his death, and it was pretty clear that the suicide was as a direct result of the losses in his branch, the attitude of post office to him and the lack of support and so on. In other words, absolutely tragic case, and one that we very much wanted to support and get answers as quickly as possible to support the family.
As we were finalising our report on the Griffiths case, both of us knew how critical our report was. But before it was issued, Post Office sent his widow, Gina, I can only describe it as a pistol-to-head deal, which said, we're going to offer you some money. If you refuse it, it's closed. And that was just before Gina had received our report.
I don't know what that offer was. What I do know was the indecent haste in which it was done.
A decision was clearly taken to pay her off before anyone got wind of what the Post Office knew. That is an attempt to suppress and cover up the truth.
I think they felt that if the facts behind the Martin Griffiths suicide became known, that would be, tabloid headline news, and that this was a way of preventing that happening. I think it is shocking behaviour, particularly bearing in mind we have an ordained priest as the chief executive at the time.
My faith has been absolutely central to transforming the Post Office. And a passage that means a great deal to me is 1 Kings chapter 3, starting at verse 5. Give to your servant an understanding heart, that I may discern between good and evil. Aspiring to his wise and understanding heart seems a very good place to start.
The time is 27 minutes to 8. It's 10 years since the world of many sub-postmasters was turned upside down. Well, a group of MPs took up the cause of the sub-postmasters.
Now, this is a national scandal. Noel Thomas did more than his fair share of good for people, and he ended up in prison because of this system.
The Post Office then started proceedings against Mrs. Rudkin for false accounting.
The constituent I have, Joe Hamilton, pleaded guilty. And it may, of course, be that the trade of sub-postmastering was infiltrated by a sudden rash of criminals. I've met a lot of these people, and I personally don't believe it.
It was clear that the MPs wanted us to work out whether there was any evidence of unsafe prosecutions, and if so, to disclose it. And boy, it leapt out at us almost immediately.
The first file I picked up was Joe Hamilton. I was shocked to find on her prosecution file, it said the Post Office investigator had found no evidence of theft. And I immediately thought, well, hang on, Joe was charged with theft. And I felt that we were potentially looking at misconduct by prosecutors as well as miscarriages of justice.
However, as we started to uncover matters which were clearly dangerous and harmful to the business model and the brand, the attitude started to harden. Boy, did the shutters come down.
There are many ways to describe it, but I think that the best word is that the Post Office has been duplicitous.
What does she do about what I suspect are hundreds of cases who never came forward initially and are now saying we need justice as well?
I suppose the point I would push back is to say that many of these cases are incredibly complex, understandably so, because you're dealing with systems and many transactions. And in order to do something, what they require is independent investigation that is done thoroughly and forensically. And that's why Second Sight, the team of forensic accountants have been employed.
Right, Project Sparrow Subcommittee, heavily redacted.
I haven't seen this. This is one of your discoveries, I suspect. However, until he deems that they are not performing their role, it will be difficult to dispense with them.
It's a worrying sign of decisions being made at a senior level of which we were unaware, which was all part of the damage limitation.
Simply disgraceful behaviour.
The government had a representative on the board, on the subcommittee, that was reporting to the minister and to the government. So, in my view, it is completely inconceivable that the government was unaware of the proposal to sack second sight. In fact, the government probably was complicit in that decision.
It's 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the 3rd of February.
It still remains one of the most extraordinary days in the whole of this story, because Paula Venables had repeatedly refused to give any outlet an interview as to what was going on.
I felt I had a duty to members of Parliament to tell the truth.
And perhaps the most important failure to disclose to us is the full access to the legal and prosecution files.
We went and sat in the audience. Yeah, quite a day to see them put on the rack.
Joe's was probably the most damning example.
I have not been satisfied that there is sufficient evidence to support a charge for theft.
He was saying, well, the Post Office have stopped giving us prosecution files. They're refusing to give us information.
Paula, why don't you give those files over? What's the problem?
So I think the point I want to pick up first, if I may, is...
No, answer my question first. Why won't you give Ian Henderson those files?
We have, as far as I'm aware, Mr Zahawi, we have shared whatever information was appropriate on every single...
That's not what Ian Henderson's saying.
It is the first time, personally, I have heard that. I'm very happy to go away and have a look.
She was squirming, and I really thought, we've got her now.
You've been told by...
Angela, I don't know
Paula's organisation that under no circumstances you'd be given those files. Is that right or wrong?
Who told you that, Ian?
It came up at one of the working group meetings which you and I were present at.
Ian, I don't recall that. Ian is completely...
Well, this sounds like a shambles to me. You came in here and opened by saying the system's working beautifully. You now realise why you're in front of the committee, is that right?
You had the chief executive of the Post Office being directly contradicted in Parliament by her own independent investigator, and yet denying that there was any sort of problem going on. And the MPs were just agog.
If there had been any miscarriages of justice, it would have been really important to me in the Post Office that we actually surface those. And as the investigations have gone through, so far we've had no evidence of that.
You just literally wanted to face her up and say, excuse me, why did you just lie? Did you not read my legal file? You know, did you not read it said there was no evidence of theft? And then you talk about miscarriages of justice in the next breath.
This is the point at which the Post Office realised it had a serious problem. It says there are a number of now convicted defendants to whom the existence of bugs should have been disclosed, but was not. The Post Office stopped prosecuting, but it didn't say why. It was told by a criminal barrister that the evidence that it had been using in the prosecution of several sub-postmasters was unsound. That could have been brought out in a way that allowed proper justice to happen, but they didn't do it. That had the effect of delaying access to justice for a large number of people over a period of years.
Mr. James Arbuthnot.
Is my right honourable friend aware the Post Office has just sacked the independent investigators, Second Sight, and told them to destroy all their papers?
They were more interested in trying to close us down than get the answers to the questions or the commitment that Paul had very publicly given members of Parliament.
There were a number of people who were prepared to compromise both their moral and professional integrity in pursuit of protection of the Post Office brand, which is ultimately what this all became about. If an act is undertaken with the intention of interfering with the administration of public justice, that is perverting the course of justice. That's the offence of common law.
And did that happen in this case?
It would seem so.
Dozens of sub-postmasters who lost their businesses and reputation, and some who were even sent to prison, have taken the Post Office to court.
The Justice for Sub-Postmasters Alliance went about looking for a way of suing the Post Office at the High Court. So this was a huge group litigation, 500 plus postmasters suing the Post Office, millions and millions of pounds at stake. Now, in a court of law, the Post Office was going to tell us what was really going on.
I just said, look, if you want me to give evidence in court, I will do. It's very, very nerve-wracking just being in the court. And you could see these absolute armies of solicitors and barristers.
Mr. Richard Roll was a very, very interesting, important person, because if the Post Office is able to access a postmaster's branch account and manipulate it without their knowledge, well, who knows what might happen.
I was trying to tell the court that it was our job to access the counters in the Post Office to fix problems. We would insert data to fix problems on the counter. We'd change the data. If Fujitsu didn't want the postmaster to know about it, then the postmaster didn't know about it.
That was seismic. That completely torpedoed an argument and one of the lines of defence by the Post Office.
And then this jaw-dropping moment in court, where a document surfaced which showed a Fujitsu engineer had gone into an individual branch sub-postmaster's accounts, changed the figures without their knowledge, and actually made the situation worse.
We will then be inserting a new message on the counter. The branch is not aware of this, and it's best that the branch is not advised.
It was the smoking gun.
Well, this just sickens me.
That is awful. That's awful.
That's terrible.
That is absolutely disgusting. That I've gone through, and other people have gone through, what I've gone through, when they knew. How is that humanly right?
Come on, Olaf.
I'm not blind.
Go on, sweetheart. Come on.
Hello there. A massive miscarriage of justice. 39 postal workers have their names cleared after years of campaigning, with more likely to follow.
Quite emotional, actually, but it's amazing. Lovely.
Can you remember what the judge said?
He said they'd steamroll us over the sub-postmasters, and that will stick in my head forever.
It's been a long time, 16 years, you know, but at last
The sun's shining and I'm free.
I went along to stand outside the court. It was wonderful. The fact that they were having their reputations rehabilitated. It was fantastic.
Thus far, no one has been held to account or accepted responsibility. That really is truly astonishing.
All these ministers, all these CEO, all these lawyers, all these people, they need to answer. We need answers now.
Come forward and confess and stand in the dock and tell the truth, because we were innocent.
I'd like to see these people come back to justice. People in their position being paid a lot of money, hiding the truth. Make them feel like I felt when I lost everything overnight.
People can't be allowed to get away with it. Justice would be for everybody to be put back to where they would have been had none of this happened. So postmasters have lost everything and they need it giving back.